Attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay. We good? Yeah. Well, welcome everybody. Can you guys hear me back in the back? All right. My name is Steve Toole. I'm the Executive Director of the Retirement System. So you're all here to talk about some retirement, right? Long, illustrious careers. Are y'all real close? Yeah? It's good. I got 6 years, about 6 months. I'm not counting, but that's about what I got. So I'm looking forward to that day of just being a little more stress-free and enjoying life a little bit. We have a tremendous staff here that is prepared to take good care of you guys. So there's no issues there. We're in our busy retirement season right now. July 1 retirements are always extremely busy. I think today, up through this morning, we're up over 2,800 retirements so far for July, and they'll still come in. I think our record's right around 4,000. We think we may exceed that because all of us baby boomers are starting to retire. I'm at the tail end, born in '63, so I'm one of the last of the boomers. So we're all starting to retire, which is a good thing, and leaving it for these younger generations, right? That's a good thing. So I'm going to leave you with three messages. I'll be brief, and I'll leave you in very capable hands with Doug and Margaret. The first thing I would say is that if you've got some more time to work, I'm going to encourage you to save more. I think that's important. You've got tremendous defined contribution plans. You're going to hear amazing statistics in the next hour or so around the amount of people that are more prepared to retire with taking home 80% of their pay in retirement compared to those people who are not. And the difference there is those people who are participating in the defined contribution plans. I think you got some of the best in the world, best for sure in the country, and I would encourage you to take advantage of those. So save, save, save. The second thing I would leave you with is that I think it's, as you think about retirement, one of the things I think about is being debt-free. I think it's important to reduce your debt as much as possible. I think that's critical. We don't know what healthcare is going to do in years to come. Inflation is going to happen. Things are going to cost more. You might want to travel. There's things you might want to go and see and do. Take in a Canes playoff hockey game, things like that. So I would encourage you to become more debt free. The last thing I want to leave you with is one I'm really passionate about. I'm very passionate about the first two, but this one hits close to home because I deal with, when I get involved on member issues, it's because there's problems. And what I tend to get involved with is where people may have not made a good informed decision around their retirement. This is, what I like to tell people is that you're probably at the moment of your life where you're going to have the most money you'll ever have. You think about it, you spent 30 some years working, some even a lot longer, and you're probably going to have the most you're ever going to have, and then you're going to retire, and then you're starting to draw it down. So that's what I'm saying. You're going to have the most you're ever going to have. Decisions you make in the next few months, years around your retirement regarding what options you choose as far as from a defined benefit plan and what you do with your defined contribution assets and who you trust them with are really important decisions. One of the things I'll tell you is that the only people you're going to deal with in retirement that's still associated with your public sector work is retirement. So you can trust us. We're state employees. We're here. We got your back. I think we've built the best defined contribution plan you can get into. So think about leaving your assets with us because you'll have more money. It'll last longer because you're not paying higher fees. So we've got some good options there. Choose wisely on the defined benefit plan. We're going to send you a check for that first payment. Once you cash it, what happens once you cash it? It's irrevocable. You're not going to make any changes. If you want to change that option before you cash that check, that's the time to do it. But more often than not, people come to us and say, I need to change something. Well, they've cashed a check. The law doesn't allow us to do it. So don't listen to what your friends tell you or your buddies tell you or your tell you, whoever sits by you, what option to choose. Be informed. And make sure you know what you're doing. It looks complicated. It's not. First question I would ask myself is, do I want a beneficiary or not? If I do not want a beneficiary, option 1 or option 4. If I'm close to 60, if I'm 60, 62, I'm not taking option 4. Be careful of that one too, because it can suck you in because it's the highest dollar amount per month. But just make sure you know what it really does. So be smart about it. But and if you want a beneficiary, then option 2 or 3 or option 6-2 or 6-3. It just kind of you can make it easier. We've got great people, great resources. So after this long and illustrious career, I'm going to leave you with what I leave everybody in these meetings, in that there's 4 easy words. I want you to think about this because they're very meaningful, very impactful. You ready? I got everyone's attention? All right. So the words are, so you've worked your long illustrious career, you're coming at the end, and the mindset you should have is goodbye tension, hello pension. All right. Thank you all for your service.
Thank you, Steve. Welcome to the Department of State Treasurer Retirement Planning Conference. We're calling this Total Retirement Planning because, again, we're working in what the defined benefit does with the defined contribution and how to actually make yourselves retirement ready. So my name's Doug Mayer. Again, I work for the Department of State Treasurer. Do I see a law enforcement officer? Can you give him the correct brochure? You already got it? Any other law enforcement? Okay. Over there in the corner. Thank you very much. Way in the back? No. Okay. Just a couple of different numbers in that handout we're going to give you. So, I work for Department of State Treasurer. I work for Steve. Steve works for Dale Falwell. So we're all one big happy family here. We do have participants online doing a simulcast. So if you're out there listening on the webinar, please type your questions in the chat box. We're going to respond to those. I have my associate Annie Morgan. She'll be responding to those questions throughout this conference. And of course, we have Margaret Hendershot with the Prudential for a defined contribution. We're going to switch back and forth through this presentation. If you have any questions, please hold them to the end. We will have some time for a town hall question and answer session at the very end. So again, welcome. And let's make this thing work. Okay, you might see yourself pop up in one of these groups. We got new people, we got mid-career people, and then we have people at the end planning for retirement. New people, there are things you need to do. You have to sign up, you got to update beneficiaries, you have to enroll in the defined contribution plan. These are all parts of working here, making sure your career is on track. Mid-career, we've got a couple of different things to take a look at, possibly consolidating assets with the catch-up provisions. If you're over 50, you get to put more money in because you didn't save enough when you were under 50, those types of things. And then, of course, nearing retirement. Now, these are the people retirement ready. If you hadn't done all the stuff earlier in your career, now you got to do it all at once. So this is also what we refer to as panic mode, when you're getting absolutely ready to retire. So just keep in mind there's a lot of moving parts to this. All of the tools, the annual benefit statements, the estimators for purchases, retirement benefits, transfer benefit options, those are all available in your accounts online. So we're going to talk about really 2 things today: the defined benefit plan, how it works, what types of benefits it provides, and the defined contribution, 401, 457, 403B, and how they all work together. So the defined benefit is the pension based on how long you work here, how much you earned. It's a formula devised benefit paid monthly to you for the rest of your life. life and possibly the life of someone else, depending on which payment option you choose. And then, of course, the defined contribution 401, 457, 403B plans are based on how much you put in there, what it did while it was in there, and how long you left it to grow. So this is a little snapshot of what a $10 retirement check would look like. Now, hopefully you're all going to get more than $10. So for every $10 of that retirement benefit, literally $1 is your money. $1.60 is based on employer contributions that came in on your behalf based on your gross salary paid by your employer. You don't own those. Those go directly to the retirement system. And then the balance of that $10 retirement benefit would be earnings, return on investment. That's the biggest portion of this retirement plan, of this benefit. That's really what keeps it supported ongoing. We currently just have over $100 billion in the retirement system. We're the 20th largest pension plan in North America. We're the 5th fiscally healthiest. We used to be number 3, but now we're number 5 because we just recently changed our discount rate, which is one of the projections we're using to track our healthiness and moving forward. So rest assured, right now, we write 440,000 retirement checks per month. We get enough money today to pay everybody who's already retired and anyone who would be eligible to retire at this time, monthly benefits for the rest of your life. So the people that are still working here got a few more years to go, or new employees that come into the system, their employer contributions, their contributions, and the continued return on investment will guarantee their benefits for their lifetimes as well. So the main goal of the retirement system is to pay all retirees on time every month, those that deserve it. But the altruistic goal of that goal is to pay those benefits on time every month forever. So Steve referred to retirement readiness. We find in our population that people that have the pension, of course, you get the pension just by working here, that if you have these supplemental 401, 457, or 403B accounts, 72% of that population is on track to achieving 80% of their current income as a retiree. People that don't participate in the supplemental plans, only 47% of that population are on track to achieve 80% of their income when they retire. So there are really pretty much 3, maybe 4 sources of income: the pension, Social Security, which you may or may not apply for immediately when you retire, and then, of course, the supplements, savings, and then possibly having to work somewhere else during retirement as a 3rd or 4th source of income. So what we see is a lot of people that are retiring before they're eligible for Social Security, or they want to wait till they're 70 or some other age until they get a higher benefit. So the supplemental plan also plays an important role there to bridge that income need until you've got that other source of income coming in at some point in the future. So most financial experts would recommend, do agree, that you do need 80% of your current income in order to survive retirement. And again, that's all sources combined. Margaret.
Alrighty. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Margaret Hendershot. Can you hear me okay in the back? Very good. Hello, webinar land. Nice to see you. We certainly appreciate you being here today. And as Doug and I had mentioned, or Doug mentioned in the beginning, how do these plans work together? How do we make sure that you have all your ducks in a row when you're looking to retire? So let me just see by show of hands in the audience. In webinar land, you don't have to raise your hands if you don't want to. show of hands, how many folks here at some time in the future are going to retire? Webinar land, everybody raise their hand. Some people raise both hands. How about necessarily short timers? How many folks do we have today that are going to retire within a 0 to 3 year time frame, are short timers? Okay, a goodly amount. A good amount. How about folks with a little bit longer time frame? They're still in that savers mode. We have a couple. Okay, so, all righty, good job. Now, how about folks with necessarily 10, 15, maybe more than 20 years before they're going to retire? Now, see, yay! Yeah, that's really, really good, because having a fundamental understanding of necessarily what these benefits are just means the kinds of choices we have to make can be so modest, meaning, hey, just start with a little bit of money, right? I mean, I had it's almost like an affirmative grunt, right? In terms of if we would have just started, right? Doug and Annie and I have such wonderful positions here in that we meet with pre-retirees every day. And what is one of the things that they share with me almost invariably, that is, I just wish I started saving sooner. And why did they say that? Well, they say that because they would have more money. They would have more money, right? So we're going to be talking to you specifically in terms of, how do you get started, what's important for you, because we have so many short timers. We certainly want to talk to you about some of the challenges and some of the tools that are available to make sure you're okay. The slide we have in front of us, I think, is a very interesting one, because another maybe misconception of pre-retirees is necessarily how long they're going to be in retirement, and how long they have to plan for. How long do you think you'll be in retirement? What do you think? Just yell it out. What do you think? A couple years? What do you think? Yeah. If you look at your own situation, right? You look at your own situation. My grandmothers on each side of my family lived to mid to upper 90s, right? And what that means then is if I retire in my 60s, which is kind of my plan to retire in my mid to upper 60s, that I could be 30 years in retirement. That is as long as they ask you to work here for full benefits, right? So I could be in retirement as long as they ask me to work in terms of overall. So how many folks here know people in their 70s? Yep. How about 80s? Okay, webinar land, almost everybody. How about 90s? Okay, maybe not everybody. Now, do we have anybody that knows anybody that has reached the 100 mark? Oh, look, we've got a couple. Oh my goodness gracious. Oh, look at that. That's just amazing, right? So think about that. They retired in their 60s, they're 40 plus years and going in retirement, right? It's an incredible thing how long necessarily that we're going to be in retirement. Now, obviously, the really good news is that the pension that Doug has done an incredible job on, you'll never outlive that money. That's a good thing. But there are some other challenges we certainly want to make sure you're aware of as you start planning for retirement. And that is some of the unique needs we all face maybe today. As you get to be my age, and many of you short timers are my age, for the most part, we are in situations where oftentimes called the sandwich generation, where we're trying to help the kids still, right? And you know what? Kids were gone, kids are back, right? In terms of boomerang kids. My husband and I certainly helped our parents as well. They were in a position where they all needed help, my mother as well as my mother and father-in-law. So that's a commitment in time as well as money for us, right, in terms of overall. When you think about that, I'm bringing this back to your current situation. And one of the things that Steve Toole had mentioned in the beginning was just as important as your income sources, you have to kind of take a look at what your expenses are going to be in retirement. Can you live on less, right? If we want you to be able to replace 80%, it's even a little bit less than what you're making now. Do you guys know what the pension is designed to actually replace in terms of your income? You think it's going to replace 100% of what you're making now? No, it's not. It's not designed for that. What do you think? What do you think it's pretty much designed to replace? Any ideas? Webinar land, just yell out. Poor things, they can't yell. About half, right? So when you think about it, you've got this 80% goal. If you're taking care of mom, if you've got kids living at home, can you live on 80% or even necessarily 50%? And the answer certainly may be no. The fact that you've got these things in terms of a plan just makes you eligible to prepare. I don't know about you, but as I get older, I'm starting to sound like my mother and my father-in-law. I really am. And of course, that's a good thing. It's a good thing. But inflation is something that I feel. I mean, I actually feel inflation now in terms of just how much things cost today compared to what they used to cost, right? Are you with me on that? In terms of $50, one bag of groceries. Now, I know you don't think that's a lot, but $50 used to be a lot of money. And now it's just what it does. It's what it buys, right? This slide's a little busy. It is a little busy because it's got a lot of stuff on it, but it's designed to show you the challenge of fixed income, meaning you're living on fixed income, you've retired. That is this first year one. That's an average. Now, of course, we're looking at just an average pension, and that's yearly now because it's paid monthly, right? In 10 years or even in 20 years, the buying power of that money goes down. And that's what inflation means. When you live on fixed income, your purchasing power goes down. You're not going to feel it your first year, right? We don't really feel it on a day-to-day basis necessarily. But boy, when we put it in context, the fact that we're going to be 20, 30 years in retirement, our pension will not go as far. So the good news is that you'll never outlive the pension. The bad news is the pension is a fixed income. There is no guarantees of cost of living adjustments, right? You'll have cost of living adjustments, but it's not guaranteed. So we have to plan for that, right? We have to plan that things are going to cost a little bit less or a little bit more. Alrighty. So we talked about where the income sources are going to come. Again, it's your pension plan, it's your savings that you have, it's your Social Security, and you're thinking, oh, what a daunting task to kind of pull all this stuff together. Guess what? This is one of the tools in the tool belt. Your annual benefit statement were done early this year, right? How many folks are familiar with Orbit? Not the travel site. This is your Orbit. Okay, great. All right, good. How many have gotten their annual benefit statement? Have taken a look at that. Oh, good job, you short timers. Really good job, because it's designed for those that didn't raise their hand. It's designed to show you where you are. I know. It pulls in all the income sources and lists them for you. Here's your teasers amount. Here's your 401k if you actually decide to take it on a monthly basis. Here's projections on Social Security, which are relatively accurate based on necessarily what you earn. And it takes it all together for you and says, hey, you are on track to replace 80%. You are retirement ready. So not only are you ready to stop working, but you actually can afford to retire. Now, good savers might have a surplus. How great is that, right? A little bit more than 80%. There's not anybody that I've ever talked to that said I made them save too much money for retirement. So a surplus is absolutely fine. Now, for many of us, though, and depending on how young we are, we may actually see a gap. And what a gap means is that, hey, given what we're currently doing, we're not really on track to replace 80%. And so it just means that's the call to action. Okay, so how far off am I? Are these things realistic? Hey, do I need to live on 80%? Or, hey, with the house paid off, kids are out, maybe I can actually live on a little bit less. So these are the tools that really can help you to determine if indeed you are on track. Annual benefit statement, my NC retirement statement. How many folks are familiar with 401k? Webinar land, everybody raise their hand. How about 457? Okay, not as many familiar, even though it's a plan that was created just for you. How about 403B? We have any teachers, educators in the room? Okay, great. 403B. This is the state 403B. You know, now that and I'm directing this a little bit towards the short timers. You know, now that you're retiring, it is really important for you to know that there's certain kinds of things in terms of eligibilities and requirements that you certainly have to get to in order to attain money. We're going to talk about distribution in a little bit towards the end of the presentation, but 401k, 457, and 403b have different features, and I want to make sure that you're aware of those. Okay? The 401k, you guys raised your hand. How old do you have to be if you own a 401k and retire or separate service? How old do you have to be to avoid a penalty? 55 and we love 59 and a half. In our world, that's just a magic number, 59 and a half. So good job there. And who said 55? Good job. Look at you. Both answers. Okay. So the answer is you have to be in the year you will turn age 55 and separate service in order to be able to have access to your 401k without penalty. If you've got 30 years of service, and perhaps maybe you're not going to be 55, you're going to be, oh gosh, we talked to firefighters, we talked to folks 48 with full years of service, right? So they're too young to take out 401k money. How long typically do you have to wait to 401k money if indeed you don't make the 55 threshold? And that's the 59.5 rule. Okay, so it's good to know. You don't really think about it while you're saving, but you kind of need to be aware of that in terms of necessarily when you're starting to plan for retirement. Now, 457, what's the 457? It was created for you, and you're thinking, well, why am I different? Well, it's not unusual with full years of service that you might separate and not be old enough to take out 401k money. You're not old enough for Social Security. You're just old enough to reach your pension. The 457 has no age attachments, meaning you separate service at any age. You have access to your money because there's never a penalty. Never a penalty.
You can roll it over without a penalty if you leave.
Yes.
At 50,
Yes.
you got 401k money. You can roll it over without a penalty. You just can't touch it, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. For a webinar and for those that might not have heard, when we're talking about taking money out of a plan, that is completely different than necessarily just putting it somewhere else. And when I say putting it somewhere else, they use the word rollover. So I want you to kind of envision rollover doesn't mean taking the money and going on a trip. It really just means, hey, I'm going to take it from here and put it somewhere else. And remember, your money's always yours. Your money's always yours. Yes, sir.
There's a point at which you have to start taking.
You do. And that's called RMD, required minimum distribution. That magic age is 70 and a half. I don't know why the half. Like 59 and a half. Why is that a magic number? Okay, investments. Suffice it to say, I didn't want to forget 403B since you guys raised some of your hands. 403B, similar to 401k rules. Okay, so that's good. Law enforcement officer, EMS, and fire folks. Okay, so any of those in those categories separate service in the year you turn age 50, 50, or older. Okay, just so you know, there's a little bit of difference there. Alrighty. Investments. I will tell you when I sit down with folks, right? I sit down with them and talk to them about retirement plans. Some folks might have investments that they might have had when they first started, or they might have had for a very long period of time. Know that we're not going to go in detail today about investments, but I certainly want to make sure there's a couple things that are out of sight, out of mind when it comes to investments. And that is what you own today as a short timer may not necessarily be or should be the same types of funds that you did when you first started. Are you with me there? The goals of someone who first start are to get bigger, want this as big as possible, right? The goal when somebody retires and starts to plan to live on the money is to make sure the money's there. Okay. And so goals depend on necessarily how your money should be invested. We're going to talk just real briefly about that later. Increasing contributions regularly or consolidating accounts. This is ways to kind of help you to have more buying power. Consolidate, as the gentleman mentioned in the back about rolling over. The advantage of rolling over accounts is it gives you more buying power as well. More service features, more things that you can do. So say, for example, you have an outside IRA or you have another old retirement plan, but you're interested in buying time that you're eligible for. Doug's going to talk about purchasing service credits. How cool is that? Buying time. By consolidating assets, it gives you more purchasing power. How do these plans work together? Purchasing time as well as transfer benefit at retirement or later allow you to increase your pension payout. So you're taking assets from one state plan and putting them into another state plan to get a bigger benefit. So consolidating gives you a little bit more muscle. You see what I'm going there? Alrighty, good. Ma'am?
This may be an individualized question. It's not for everybody, but I've always had a 403B, and I've never really understood the difference between a 403B and a 401k.
There's really not much.
Okay.
There's really not much. And so the answer is, what plans you own are kind of determined by what employer you have. So if you worked at the state treasurer's office, Doug can't have a 403B. And you're thinking, why? I love my 403B. Well, he's not an educator. It's currently offered through K through 12 and community colleges. So it's really who you're working for in terms of what plan is actually available for you. These are employer-sponsored plans. That's a good question. Alrighty, increasing contributions regularly, even short timers, any money that you can put into the plan. Another misconception I can share with you is that folks like these plans. They've done well for them. They want to be able to put money in even after they retire. And oh goodness, I just love the way they think. But you know what? No, Once you retire, that's the bucket of money you're going to be living on then for all of your years in retirement. So I'm going to mention a couple ways as we talked this morning about how to get that thing a little bit bigger, okay? Increasing contributions. I am now, because of all of my commitments are behind me, I am now working for retirement. I'm working for retirement, so we're putting some money in on a regular basis. Catch-up provisions. Catch-up provisions say, look, they looked at us over 50. Well, let me ask you this. Do you think Americans are good savers? You think we're good savers? We were kind of talking about that before. Good savers. Oh, it's time. Good savers. The answer is no, we're not particularly good savers, right? It's hard to envision that we're going to need more money in the future. Those of you that raised your hand when you said you knew 70 and 80-year-olds, you know they need stuff. They need health care. They need caregiving. They need stuff, right? So making sure we have enough money is so important, and that's one of the things that they're bringing this in today. But the catch-up provisions are designed to say, look, we've looked at people over 50. Oh, my. If they're going to live 20, 30 years in retirement, we're concerned for them, and we're going to let them catch up, meaning you don't have enough money. You don't have enough money to save. So how much money can you put in your plans each year? Do you guys know? If you're under the age of 50, you can actually put in $19,000 into the 401k. You can own the 457 as well and put $19,000 in there as well. If you're over 50, and this is the catch-up provision, they're going to let us put in $25,000 into each plan. Now, look, I know you have to eat. We don't want you to eat ramen noodles every night. The answer is, we know that those things oftentimes don't come into play, but why would they come into play for short-timers? Importantly, accrued benefits like unused vacation, bonus, and longevity will be paid out in cash to you. How great is that, right? That's great. But you know what? You also you can defer it. So knowing that your plan can only hold so much is very, very helpful for you. Are you with me on this? Okay, good. And we're going to talk about how you do that in a little bit, but this just to give you a big kind of an overview. All righty, because Doug's up and he's going to talk about the pension plan.
Thank you. Okay, who's ready to retire? Who's eligible to retire? It's a tie. So anybody who's 65 years old with 5 years of membership service, creditable service in local government, can retire with an unreduced retirement benefit. If you're at least 60 and have 25 years of creditable service, you can retire with an unreduced retirement benefit. That means you get 100% of the formula, no reduction. Now, this is also commonly referred to as the rule of 85. But at this point in time, I must say, there is no rule of 85 in this retirement system. In order for this to be unreduced, first you have to be 60, and then you have 25 years of service. If you're 59 with 26, sure, you can add them together equals 85, but that would be an early retirement. So you need to meet both criteria, age and service. It also doesn't take you to 30 or some other magic amount of service or unreduced benefit. It's based on however much service you have at that time, and we write you a check. Also, any member who has 30 years of service, doesn't matter what your age is, you can retire with an unreduced benefit. We've got early benefits. These are reduced. Age 60, 5 years of membership service, you'd actually get 85% of the formula at age 60. It increases every year until you get to 65. And then anybody who's 50 that has at least 20 years of creditable service could retire with an early service retirement. Now, we would calculate that benefit just like we would calculate everybody else's, but then we would apply the reduction factor for age 50 and write you a check for exactly half, 50% reduction. Now, most of the people I've run into that are retiring at 50 are going to start a new career tomorrow and do it all over again. But it is available should you need to do that. Law enforcement, they get to retire a little earlier, age 55, 5 years as a law enforcement agent or officer, and then, of course, 30 years, regardless of your age. And then early benefit is age 50 with 15 years of service as a law enforcement officer. And there's also a new benefit now. It's 25 years of service under the age of 50. Still have to have 15 as law enforcement officer. But again, that would provide an earlier reduced benefit. Now, the one thing to keep in mind is if you're not 50 yet, you're not getting a special separation allowance. Special separation allowance doesn't come with the 25-year early law enforcement retirement benefit. So be careful. Here's the formula. We're going to take your average final compensation, multiply that times a accrual factor, times your years and months of creditable service, take that number, divide by 12. That's your maximum monthly benefit. It's that simple. Your average final compensation is your highest 4 consecutive years of your reported salary. Consecutive meaning being the key word. Means it got to be hooked together. We can't use 85, 93, 2006, and 11 because those were the good years. They got to be hooked together. Now, keep in mind, we will never average a 0 into your average final compensation. So you worked, you took 2 years off, you came back, worked 2 more, and this was your highest salary. We'd use the 2 years of salary, skip over the zeros, come back until we've got a full 48 months, 48 calendar months of reported salary. Take that number, divide it by 4, that's your average final compensation. Now, if that high salary part is your final 4, we just had that. The end of your career, the terminal payouts, annual leave, bonus leave, prorated, longevity, whatever, that's included in that last month of salary, whether they paid it that month or 3 months later, it becomes part of your average final compensation. Now, we'll then scan your entire career. If you had a higher consecutive 4-year period earlier in your career, we'll use that number to calculate your retirement benefit. However, we're not going to pick up those payouts and include them somewhere else. They stay where they were paid at the end of your career. Now, if you're a teacher on a 10-month contract, 11-month contract, 9-month contract, if you work during the summer months or off-contract months, summer stipend, summer school, summer whatever, that's included. That's part of your average final compensation, even though you're outside of an actual contract. Any kind of terminal payments you got earlier, there, wherever they were paid, longevity, whenever you got that longevity check, it lived where it was paid and is part of your average final compensation, or potentially. Now, there is nothing you can do to physically reduce your average final compensation. So if you're deferring into 401, 457, 403, it does not change your average final compensation. It's not affected by taxes. The flexible spending health insurance accounts do not reduce your average final compensation. Doesn't matter if you're, again, teacher on a 10-pay spread or a 10-pay straight, it does not change your average final compensation. It is your pure gross salary. Every dollar that had 6% of it paid to the retirement system is included in the average final compensation. And this is a number that's even larger than your W-2. The 6% has never been reported to you as income, unless you work for one local agency in the state of North Carolina. They do after-tax contributions. So you can't hurt your average final compensation, so please continue saving, do the flexible spending accounts, all of that, because again, it has no effect on the average. Secondly, we then take that number and multiply it by this accrual factor. It's 1.82% for teacher and state, 1.85 for local government. What this is the percentage of that average final compensation that you receive as a retirement benefit for every single year you worked here. This number is determined by the General Assembly. It hasn't changed in 11 years. The last time it changed was for local government. In 1941, when this retirement system came together in its current form, this number was 1.45. It's taken over 70 years to get to where it is today. Again, it's not changing anytime soon. If you are retired and this factor changed or even went down, your benefit would not change. You would continue to receive the same retirement benefit that you started with, that was calculated when you retired. And then we've got the third part of the formula. This is called creditable service. The first part of creditable service is what we call membership service. This is where you actually came to work and got paid. 6% of your compensation magically disappeared, reappeared in an account here with the Department of State Treasurer, held in your name for your behalf, for your benefit. Nobody can get it. It can't be levied, equitably distributed, taxes, nothing. Bankruptcy cannot be attached, period. You can't even get it until such time as you terminate employment or begin receiving retirement benefits. So that's the 6% membership contribution. There's also other non-contributory service that's part of creditable service. Let's say, for example, you're on short-term disability or long-term, extended term, whatever, disability. You get better, come back to work. Well, that period you were out receiving disability benefits is put back into your account as non-contributory service. For local government, if you're on disability retirement, that service projection is part of that disability benefit. So that time is accounted for and you didn't pay for it. Let's say, for example, you're in the Guard or Reserve, you could called up to active duty. When you come back to your same employer in local government or any employer in the teacher and state employees retirement system, due to a call to active duty, when you return, that service is put back into your account at no cost to you. Your employer pays for it, just like you never left. Got to have a DD 214, all of that, document time in, time out. But again, that time will be put back into your account, just like you never left. Now, we can purchase stuff. This is not free. This is a service purchase. You can purchase out of state time. You could purchase prior federal time. You could purchase temporary time or part-time where you were working here for local or state government in the state of North Carolina. But again, these are available to add additional creditable service to your retirement benefit.
What do you pretend is the rate of pay for that added on time?
Wouldn't have a clue. Okay, the question was, what would my benefit change by if I purchase service? Possibly? Okay. Depending on how much you buy would be creditable service added to the total. So if you worked here for 20 and didn't purchase service, your benefit would be based on 20 years of service. If you purchased 10 years of service and worked for 20, now your benefit would be 30 years or 33% larger than it was originally. But 10 years of service probably going to cost you $150,000, $200,000. I'll tell you how to figure out if that's a good idea or not later. And then unused sick leave, as allowed by law, is additional creditable service added to your total at retirement. Every 20 days equals an additional month of service. Every 20 days plus whatever's left over adds an additional month, provided it's at least 1 hour. Now, sick leave is earned at different rates for different types of employees. So we've got a firefighter, a law enforcement officer working 12-hour shifts. Then we got maybe a DOT example number 2 works a 7.5-hour day. Well, the first example, he's going to earn 12 hours of sick leave per month. The second example earns 7.5 hours of sick leave per month. They both earned 1 day. Okay? So when this guy gets ready to retire in example 1, we're going to take his total hours and divide by 12. We're going to take the other guy, divide his hours by 7.5. Now, assuming these people work 30 years, they never took a day off, they never took a sick day, they never took a vacation, they'll need to retire. But they would both have exactly the same number of sick days. Now, that also includes the over 30 days of annual leave that you didn't use. That rolls up throughout your career. But both of these individuals at 30 years of service will have exactly 4 years and 1 month of unused sick leave, which is going to be added right on top to make their benefit even bigger. We can use the 30, or if you already have 30, we're going to add the sick leave on top. Again, make the benefit bigger. We could use the sick leave to get to 30 years. We can use sick leave to get to the 25 years as long as we're already 60. We can use the sick leave to get to the 20 years we need to be able to retire at 50, provided we're still actively employed. Sick leave cannot, never has, nor will it ever make anybody older. The old part you got to get on your own. It also cannot be used to meet the minimum requirement of a deferred benefit. So a deferred benefit means you used to work here, you quit, you wait until you get old enough to get a retirement check. So in this instance, here's an example. I'm 49. I got 18 years of service, 2 years unused sick leave. I quit my job. When I'm cleaning out my office, I circle my 50th birthday on my future calendar, so I'll remember to send in my retirement application. Well, the retirement system's going to send me a letter back that says I'm not eligible to retire because I'm deferred. I'm out of service. I can't use that 2 years to add to the 18 to even get to 20. So if retiring at age 50 was my retirement plan, my plan just failed. I'm not going to get a check till I turn 60. And by that time, my sick leave is gone. Good for 365 days in local government, 5 years in the state. So the moral of that story is if you want to get a check anytime before you're 60, make sure you got 20 years before you walk out the door. And then, of course, sick leave would be used once you've met that minimum threshold. Sick leave cannot be used for survivor alternate benefit. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Sick leave cannot be used to make you eligible for a disability retirement. And if you're getting health insurance, sick leave cannot be used to meet the 5-year minimum of membership service to be eligible for health coverage. Okay, now, if your neighbor's nodding off, give them a nudge, because we're taking everything we've talked about so far and putting it into one example. This is an example of payment options. So we've got a member who's 49, a beneficiary who's 51. We've got an average final compensation of exactly $50,000. This member at this point in time has exactly 30 years. They could have purchased service. They could be using unused sick leave. 30 is the total. So we do the math. 50,000, this is for a teacher and state example, 50,000 times 0.0182 times 30. Divided by 12, this member will get exactly $2,275 every month for the rest of their life. When this member dies, the maximum benefit stops. Maximum is for the member's lifetime only. If we need to leave an income behind after we're gone, we've got a couple of different options. Option 2 is a 100% joint survivor. We'll pay the member $21.50, member dies, beneficiary gets the exact same amount for the rest of their life. We don't write two checks at once. One has got to die before the other one gets there first. It's a survivor benefit. Option 3, 50% joint survivor. We'll pay the member more now because we're only paying the beneficiary half. Okay, ready for your first pop quiz? You might have noticed both of these survivor options are lower than the maximum. Does anybody know why? Let me tell you. To determine the survivor options, we take the closest age of the member and the closest age of the survivor. Look that up on a factor chart and multiply the maximum benefit by that decimal, by that factor. Because now we're paying a benefit over a longer period of time. What do you think would happen if this member chose their kid or grandchild as a survivor? Benefits going down, right? Because now we're paying it for 20, 30, maybe 40 more years. So again, the age of the beneficiary is critical in determining how much the member would receive to begin with. That leaves option 4. We're going to skip that because 6, 2, 6, 3 are modified versions of 2 and 3. 6, 2, 100% joint survivor, member dies, beneficiary gets the same. But if that beneficiary dies before the member's benefit changes. It pops up to the maximum. Same with 6, 3. Pay the member more now, beneficiary gets half. But if that beneficiary dies before the member's benefit changes. It goes up to the maximum. And then finally, that leaves option 4. Steve talked about this earlier. This is the biggest number on the page. So it's a rather popular option. You can get it up until you turn 62, because after 62, you can't get it. Now, in a perfect world, this might not be a bad idea. We'll pay this particular member $2,664 every month until they turn 62. 3 months before they turn 62, they're going to apply for early Social Security. So that when our benefit drops down to $1,464, their Social Security check's in their mailbox. So they get 14 from us, 12 from Social Security, add it all back together. Their income remained level. Instead of getting 1 check, now they're getting 2. Now, there's another issue, though. What do you think would happen if this member decided not to get Social Security at 62? We're going to send them a check for $1,464. What if they want to wait till they're 67 to get unreduced? We're going to send them a check for $1,464. What if they don't get $1,200? We're going to send them a check for $1,464. Now, hopefully this member sent us a custom estimate for their Social Security benefit. If they sent us the one that they mail us occasionally, I don't even know if they do that anymore. Clearly, right on the top, it says, if you continue to work and earn your current income, your benefit will be. And then it's got 62, 65, 67, 70. It's assuming your current income until such time as you apply for that benefit. If this member goes Princess Cruise Lines or fishing till they turn 62, they're not getting $1,200. Now, there's no what if this happened, what if that happens formula with option 4. Both of these numbers are determined the day that member retired, and it is a contract. Guarantee. Guarantee will pay you $26.64 till you turn 62. Guarantee will pay you $1,464 thereafter. So is this a bad option? Well, no, but it has some risk. The member's assuming 100% of the Social Security aspect one applying for it and that they're going to get that much, because we have no control over that. But it's simply there to allow a member to be able to retire, keep their house, put food on the table, gas in the car, occasionally. This is called Social Security leveling. Yes. Now, Steve also mentioned once you get that first check and you cash it, that's your retirement benefit for life. Now, you can actually think about that. You can take a magnet, stick it to your refrigerator, and look at it for 30 days. Once that EFT payday on the 25th falls and you haven't made a decision, your bank made the choice for you. Once that first direct deposit hits your account, it's final. Now, unless one of these exceptions happens, you cannot change that payment option. So first, if you have a spouse as your survivor beneficiary for options 2, 3, 6, 2, or 6, 3, and somewhere in your retirement career you decide you don't get along anymore, you send us a divorce decree that says you're free to go your merry way versus pay Mary forever, you can change your payment option. If it says pay anybody forever, that's probably a qualified domestic relations order, and it might say, oh, and by the way, you got to keep option whatever. Then you can't change it. But if it's absent or silent on that point, you can change your payment option. Now, this works 100% of the time, all the time. You suspend your retirement and you come back to work as a contributing member from the retirement system from which you retired and work for a minimum of 3 more years. After 3 more years of membership service, you re-retire. We'll take your old retirement, merge it together with the new service, recalculate your benefit, and you get to choose a new payment option. Now, the only good news about having to work for 3 more years is your average final compensation will never be less than it was in your original retirement. Now, if your salary goes up in that new career, second career, your average would also increase. Your service would increase and your average final compensation would increase. So there'd be 2 factors that make for a higher benefit at some point in the future. And then finally, we've got what's called a redesignation. This is not technically an options change, and it applies to options 2 and 3 only. If your spouse is your surviving beneficiary and your spouse dies, and you tell us within 90 days of remarrying, you can put your new spouse in there as your new survivor. Now, you don't have to get remarried within 90 days of your spouse dying. Just tell us within 90 days of finding a suitable replacement. And at that point, we will recalculate your benefit based on your current age and the age of your new spouse. So that might change also.
So if you're a widower now and you retire and then remarry sometime.
Okay, the question was,
Take an option 1,
right.
you just stay with option.
right. For clarification, if in order for this spousal redesignation to happen, you had to have been married when you retired. So if you were single when you retired, you can't add anybody, whether you marry them or not, in the future. Okay? Your only choice would be go back to work for 3 more years. Okay, back to Margaret.
Alrighty.
Don't go anywhere.
Alrighty. Fortunately for me, the formula for your 401k, your 457, and your 403b is really, really easy. It is up to you. It is up to you in terms of how much money is in this plan. It really is. There's no benefit formula. There's no years of service. And there are some things we certainly want to make sure you're aware of when you do indeed retire. So the first thing is, ncplans.prudential.com is a very, very useful site. Now, it's in the presentation. All the resources are listed at the end. But if you're interested in, for example, what is the difference between 401k and 403b, or just something that you'd like to be able to look at, I obviously know that font size 6 is hard to read. So what we're going to do is actually just talk a little bit about the differences of the plan, particularly for our short timers, okay? So the 401k plan, when you talk about eligibility, you have to be a full-time contributing member to a pension plan. So that's for our Elders folks as well as our state teasers folks. You know, you have to be full-time contributing member to be able to participate in 401k. Now, why do I bring up eligibility? Because the 457, in terms of eligibility, return to work retirees, anyone receiving W-2 wages or part-time work can participate. So as you think about your plans for retirement, if indeed return to work is part of that strategy, just know there is indeed a state plan available for you to contribute. Now, obviously, you know it's voluntary just like it is now, but know that that is indeed available to you as well. So full-time 401k, part-time, temporary return to work retirees 457. Okay, so a little bit different. I will tell you, I do get some questions from folks regarding some of the service features of the account. So let's say, for example, you decide to retire, but you might have an outstanding loan. You might have an outstanding loan. And we know a loan is where you're borrowing against yourself, right? Paying yourself back through payroll repayments. When you separate service, obviously you're not being paid anymore, right? You're living on your savings. So if indeed you'd like to take a loan with you in retirement, it is indeed something that you can set up. So you can either pay it off, you can take a loan with you and continue paying it off on a monthly basis. You could also actually just close out the loan, and closing out a loan would just be a distributable event. Alrighty. In terms of other types of things to consider, I would tell you in-service withdrawal. So you know how we were talking about it's important to look at your income sources, but just as important to look at expenses. Know that 59.5 rule again pops up in that there is indeed certain things that are available to you as still employed. And that is, there's something called the in-service 59.5 rule. If you're 59.5, IRS says, you know what, you're old enough to take out retirement money, whether you're working or whether you're retired. So if you need to have access to your funds, you know that you do have that available within the 401k of 59.5. For the 457, the in-service rule is 70.5, so it's a little bit older. Alrighty, so other things to consider, certainly when you're kind of at the end of your retirement. How you saved your money will dictate what happens to you when you pull it out. Okay, so when we refer to contributions in a 401k, there's two ways, and 4057 and 403b, so the defined contribution plans, there's two ways to put money in the account. One way helps you tax-wise today, and one way helps you tax-wise later. You're thinking, interesting. So pre-tax comes right off of our gross pay. Right off of our gross pay. So as my tax deductions have flown the nest, my mortgage interest is now capped with the new changes of tax law last year. Pre-tax contributions reduce your taxable income today. Okay, it reduces your taxable income today. So you make a certain amount of money, you put money into your 401k, and you're only taxed on the remainder. Okay, so you are now what's called tax deferred. Now, why do we say tax deferred? Okay, so you've been saving all this time, it's been growing, it's been doing its thing. You are now retiring, talking to me about taking money out. If you've not paid taxes when you save the money, do you think you're going to have to pay taxes when you pull it out? Yeah, you will. Yeah, you will. Yeah, you will. Okay, I get questions, not necessarily frequently, but periodically someone will say, well, how old do I have to be to avoid taxes? I'm like, I need a joke. You know, I need something funny. Because the answer is, you know what, if you've not paid on the front side, you will indeed pay when you pull it out, okay? So we do not give legal or tax advice, but I will tell you, taxes are not an ancillary thing when you start talking about living on funds, and will it indeed be a taxable event for you. I know we've got some local government folks. If indeed employers make contributions into your account, I mean, obviously free money, we just love that. Do know that's also pre-tax money as well. So that will be a taxable event when you pull it out, okay? When you pull it out. Now, how many folks have heard of Roth? Senator Roth. How many folks have heard of that? Okay. This is money that comes out of your net pay. You're thinking, well, that doesn't sound all that fun. Net pay means I paid taxes on it now. Why would I do that, right? Well, here's the thing. You pay money in terms of the taxes on the contribution today, but it grows tax-free forever. It grows tax-free forever. So the reason that that's important is that the longer the time frame for a Roth account, the better. Are you with me on that? Okay, because it's the earnings that are free of the taxes, right? The longer we have it in the account. So I started Roth contributions much later. It wasn't even an option in my plan until not, maybe 10 years ago. So it's not a big portion. But when you think about it, this is now going to be my old lady fund, right? I want to have time and effort to grow and to compound again, right? All free of taxes. And you can tell webinar land, I love saying that. And I always say it at least twice, free of taxes. Now, you have to be 59 and a half, the magic rule, 59 and a half, and you have to own the first contribution for 5 years. But Roth contributions, you can see, have a value for you in the future, right? It used to be necessarily that people considered, would you have more money in retirement? And most of us won't have more money, right? But one thing that was not considered was, do you think the taxes will be different in the future? Will they be different when you're older, 10, 20 years down the road? The answer is yeah, it's possible that it will. So can you do both? Yes. Can you do one or the other? Absolutely, in terms of overall. But do understand how you save the money will indeed dictate what happens to you when you take it out, okay? All right, so it's important to know there. All righty. How many folks have heard of the one-time contribution form? Okay, all righty. Webinar land, I didn't get a lovely lady up here. She's the only one that raised her hand. Okay, so one-time contribution form. So the one-time contribution form is kind of something it's an odd named form, right? One time, is that one time in my lifetime? Is that one time just for the calendar year? This form was designed to say, for one payroll period, I would like to put something different into my account than what I'm currently contributing. Now, specifically for you short-timers right now, right? Unused vacation, bonus, and longevity, all paid out in cash, right, at retirement. Would it be helpful for you to defer it? Would it be helpful for your 401k or your 457 or your 403 balance to get a nice hefty jump? Yes, it's like a nudge. It's like a oomph, right? It gives you more money in your account. This is the account you're now going to live on for decades. How can we make it bigger? Well, at the end, final payout. Now, for state entities, this can be faxed directly to Best Shared Services, okay? Okay, and if you don't know what Best Shared Services is, that means you likely have your own payroll department. So if you're a school, all schools have their own payroll departments, okay? Local government, you all have your own HR and payroll people, okay? But this is what this is designed to say. For one payroll period, I'd like to put in more money, okay? You can use this now for our saver kind of group, the group that actually has time to save. Let's say, for example, you get a bonus or you get a longevity check, right? If you don't need it to pay off something, then the answer is, okay, think of yourself, think of your future self, right? Go ahead and for that one payroll period. So say, for example, in the fall, I'm going to get my longevity. I'm going to throw it in my 401k, okay? You can do pre-tax or after-tax Roth or both contributions, all righty? Either one or both. Now, obviously, pre-tax helps you tax-wise now, but it's also another way to put more Roth money in as well. You still have to pay on the taxes, but it's another way to put more money into the accounts. One-time contribution form, alrighty? So no, it just needs to be downloaded and set in. Best Shared Services, folks, you can do 4 to 6 weeks out. 4 to 6 weeks out, they'll take this. So it doesn't mean one time in your lifetime. It just means, hey, just know that that's an available option to you. This is one of those tools in the tool belt, okay? How do you make it bigger? One-time contribution. ncplans.prudential.com has all the forms listed. ncplans.prudential.com. You're going to see the treasurer right there, just right underneath his face. There's about 3 or 4 buttons over there. Get forms. All the forms. Say again? This would be specifically just for the defined contribution plans in terms of the one-time contribution form, okay? Because you only give them the 6%. You can't give them more. As much as I love the way you think. Let's make it a bigger benefit. I know when you think of your investments, you think about seeing, you think about happiness, but the answer is many people find investments a little challenging. So one of the things I want to bring to your attention is that the North Carolina plans are managed by the Treasurer's Office, the Board of Trustees, and their financial advisors. These are national and international financial advisors. And so there's an oversight of these plans that's inherent within the plans. The size of the plan, so you figure you guys are all from different entities, right? Which is like really cool because like we have local government, so cities and towns and state agencies and schools. Okay, so you're all from different entities, but it's all the same 401k. How cool is that, right? So in terms of the billions of dollars that are in there, right, that gives it buying power. It is a very, very low cost investment, very low cost. So here's another thing to kind of keep with you in retirement. It is not what you make. It is what you keep. It is not what you make. It's what you keep. Because you think about it, in retirement, you've already made what you're going to make. Now, let's consider taxes. Let's consider fees. Does it cost? Now, how many folks have gotten their quarterly newsletters? How many folks have gotten their quarterly newsletters already? Okay. So first quarterly, the first quarter, and we do them quarterly, or you can look at it online, absolutely. But there is indeed something included in the newsletter this year, in this quarter, and it actually talks about a fee holiday. And what the treasurer and his group has looked at to say, look, there's certain kinds of things where maybe we don't necessarily need to have this charge, and it goes back to you. How great is that, right? If you don't have to pay the money, you get to keep the money. So take a look at this for you. This is some of the value of having the account stay within the plans is indeed that, hey, if money is not required, it goes back to you. And that's another way to kind of keep it. In terms of the investments within the plan, there's two ways to put money into the plan. You can actually go ahead and choose your own investments, and you can absolutely still do that in retirement as well. Okay, so you absolutely can. But for many of us, we're looking at necessarily some investment help. And investment help is called Goal Maker. How many folks are familiar with Goal Maker? All right, good. Goal Maker basically says, look, we'll help you to kind of divvy up your money. How do you divide up your dollar in terms of the kinds of investments that might be appropriate for me now in terms of kind of the lower risk all the way through the risk spectrum? How do we divide that up? By answering a couple questions. How comfortable are you with risk, or what's your investor style as a conservative, moderate, or an aggressive individual? And aggressive is a bad word. It just means more stock. Okay, it doesn't mean mean. It just means more stock related. And necessarily, how long before you're going to need your money? And this is an important thing for the short timers, okay? I would certainly leave you with investing. If there's nothing else, we need to know what we own and why we own it. All right, what we own. And I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. December this past year, we had a gal, right? And she had high risk investments, but wanted to go ahead and take her money out. Well, if you guys recall the investment performance of stock in December, it was not good. It was negative, right? So she had made some money, but last year ended up losing a little bit of money because she was all in stock. Well, you can see that there's a disconnect there. If you want to take out your money, we want to necessarily make sure that you have a little bit less risk so that you're not taking things out at a loss. So that's kind of the caution for you is that, look, if you've not looked at your investments in a while, this is another thing I brought for you. And Webinar Land, it's on the webinar, or it's on the website as well under Meet Your Counselor. I'm one of 18 people. And so I know you guys are all across the state as well. Everyone is assigned someone based on their geographic area and their entity, okay? So everyone has a counselor assigned. I would tell you, get an annual checkup. Sit down, take a look at necessarily what this is, okay? We've got our names, we've got our locations, we've got our email addresses, and we've got our phone numbers, okay? Goalmaker is here to help you in terms of your investments, but if you need something of a larger picture, know you've got a retirement education counselor assigned as well. Okay, and as Doug comes up with death benefits, one last thing about death benefits, annual benefit statement, checkpoint 4. Annual benefit statement, checkpoint 4, lists all your beneficiaries in one spot. So if you look at 401k and you don't see anything in there, it means you don't have anybody, right? Or you look at guaranteed refund or return of contribution or any of the things that Doug is going to talk about, it means you don't have one. Annual benefit statement, checkpoint 4.
Death benefits. Okay, this is called the survivor alternate benefit. This is what happens if you die before you retire. If you're 60 with 5 years of membership service or 20 years of creditable service, and you have currently listed only a single beneficiary for the return of contributions, we're going to send that beneficiary an extra letter that says they have a choice. They can choose a lifetime income or the lump sum distribution of contributions and interest. So it's a choice. They get to make that choice. If you have named more than one beneficiary for the return of contributions, there is no option. Now, if it is one beneficiary and you qualify by age and service, we'll calculate that benefit just like as if you retired versus died. Average final compensation, terminal leave payout, sick leave, all of that's in there. And it's the survivor option of option 2, paid to that survivor every month for the rest of their life. Now, if they take the lump sum and decide to pay themselves what we'll pay them for the rest of their life, they'll run out of money in 4 years. So it's not a bad option. But again, the only way to get it is to make sure you've listed only a single beneficiary for the return of contributions. Yes?
Primary beneficiary?
Primary.
Contingents, that don't count, right?
Contingents don't matter. Then if the primary dies, the contingent moves up to the primary.
Can you be under age 60 if you have 20 years? I don't understand your graph.
You can be under 60 as long as you have 20 years. 20 years any age. Okay? Now, law enforcement. Age 55, 5 years of creditable service as a law enforcement officer. 50 with 15 or 20 years regardless of their age. Same offer. We have a death benefit. Now, here you can have more than one beneficiary. They split equally. It's a minimum $25,000 up to a maximum of $50,000 based on your highest salary out of the last 2 years. If you die as a retiree and you have one of the options, 2, 3, 6, 2, 6, 3, the continuation of that monthly income is literally the death benefit. Lifetime income for that survivor. The active death benefit, the minimum 25, maximum 50, is paid for up to 180 days after you terminate employment. So it could be even covering you during the first 6 months of your retirement. Now, don't tell anybody, you might have a short retirement. But again, it does remain active 180 days after termination. All retirement benefit payment options have a guaranteed refund. This is your return of contributions at retirement minus the checks we've sent you up to that point. If you die and there's anything left over, it's paid to a beneficiary that you chose during your retirement process. If you didn't choose one, it's paid to your estate. So with the maximum or option 4, when you die, if there's anything left over, it's paid to that beneficiary or beneficiaries. If you have the survivor option, you die, we pay the survivor, they die, and then we look to see if there's anything left over. If there is, we'll pay that to a beneficiary who is somebody other than your survivor. Okay? Because your survivor already died. Question? No? Excellent. And then we have an optional contributory death benefit. This is a $10,000 last expense policy. Doesn't matter what gets you. Natural, accident, or other. Paid to a beneficiary of your choice based on a premium determined by your age when you retire that will never increase. The death benefit never decreases no matter how old you get. However, we do need to see the premium payments for the first 2 years before the full death benefit is paid. If you die too soon, it's a return of premiums plus interest, and it's done. So that presents an issue. when we send you the certificate that says you have the contributory death benefit, before you file it away with your estate papers, just right across the top of it, don't die till month 25 and you'll be fine. Maybe not. But again, that's an important paper. You want somebody to be able to find that in case you're no longer available. And again, that's optional. You need to elect it within 60 days of your retirement, or it'll never be offered again. If you retire from both local and state, you can have it twice, based on your age when you retire from one or the other. How do we retire? Well, there's the new way. People have been waiting for this for years. How can I retire without telling my employer? Online retirement. You go to your Orbit account, it's the button right up on top, I want to retire. Click that, it shows you a roadmap, it's good. It's got helps along the different steps. There are really 3 stages. One is apply, second is pick beneficiaries, third is choose a benefit payment option, print off your form, have it notarized, and send it back to the retirement system. It's really that simple. Now, as far as telling your employer, 24 hours after you hit that button, we email your employer. Anyways, because they have to still fill out terminal leave payments, how long, future salaries, etc., and what sick leave balances are available for retirement purposes. So they're going to find out. Now, the paper process is still available. You can download the Form 6, take it to your employer. They fill out page 2, send it back to us, and just wait for the mail. There'll be 3 different mailings. That's the old process, but again, they both work. They are trued and tested. So, retirements are always effective on the 1st of the month, as is your age. You're never as old as you thought you were until the 1st of the month after your birthday. So if you want to retire at age 60 and your birthday is December 12, please don't send us a retirement application for December 1st, because you're still 59. That'd be an early retirement. So January 1 would be the 1st of the month after your 60th birthday. Assuming you got 25 years of service, that would be unreduced. Application must be signed and dated at least the day before you retire, but not more than 120. We'll round that out to a full 4 months. If you send it in too early, we put it on the they sent it in too early pile and never look at it again. We'll send you a letter. It says send in a new one. If you do decide to send in that application the day before you retire, I can guarantee one thing. You will not get paid for 3 months. It'll be a big check. We'll pay you retroactively back to the day after tomorrow, but it's going to take literally 90 days possibly to process that, to change that application into your first retirement check. But again, you're paid retroactive for all the benefits that you were due. It doesn't matter how big I'm retiring tomorrow on the top of that application. We do them in the order they were received, first in, first out. First benefit check is always mailed. This is a paper check. This is the reality check. You're going to open this check where you open all your important checks, and you're going to have one of 2 reactions. Gee, this is terrific. I should have done it years ago. Or, I can't live on this. If there's a negative reaction, do not cash that check. Call us. We'll see if we can help you. I did have somebody say, well, what if I already picked the maximum? I said, well, hey, at least you can cancel your retirement and go back to work. Can't guarantee they're going to pay you, but that's an option you can do by calling us. Payday is on the 25th of each month. Unless it falls on a weekend or holiday, we'll pay you the business day before, and in December we pay early. Now, we do have optional health, dental, vision, LifeLock. Again, it's optional. You can enroll if you want. It's deducted right out of your retirement check. We've got a good-sized group based on 440,000 retirees, so it's a reasonably priced plan. It's administered through the Pierce Agency. They're under contract. We do a bid every 5 years for somebody to provide these benefits to retirees. They're the current custodian of this process. If you're getting health insurance, the one thing you need to remember is we're going to auto-enroll. Whatever plan you have as an employee, you're going to have as a retiree, unless you step in and make some changes before it goes live. Now, the state health plan is currently doing the pre-65 tour. That show is 90 minutes long on how to retire, how to get health insurance, what you do when you're 65. It's all important information, but it is more information than we could share today. So they're on shpnc.org. There's a schedule of events, schedule of webinars, when they're going to do teleconferences. All of that's available, and all of the different plans and steps along the way are listed on their website. Now we got a transfer benefit. This is not the one-time contribution. This is what you would do possibly after all of the one-time contributions, all of the distributions, all of the contributions have been put into your 401 or 457 account. Using this option, you can actually take that account, all of it or part of it, and roll it back over to the retirement system for an additional monthly lifetime income paid to you over and above your service retirement. In addition to. Now, you can leave your 401, 457, whatever, right where it is, and you have an asset. Something happens, you can call them up. They'll send you a check in the mail tomorrow. However, if you have rolled it all over for the additional monthly income, you would then have to wait until we sent you enough monthly checks to go do whatever you needed to do or buy whatever you wanted to buy. So it's liquidity versus conservative life income that you can never outlive. You need to decide which of those is the best option for you. We're going to keep $100 out of whatever you roll over, one-time fee, and it is irrevocable. If you're law enforcement and you are vested with 5 years of law enforcement service on or before June 30th, 2010, you must do this as part of your retirement process. Now, you can defer the transfer of the funds from Prudential for 90 days, but you have to apply for it with the retirement process. And then you get what we call the old Leo credit rate, which pays a higher monthly income. If you do it at some point in the future, which any retiree can do, you would simply get the general employee crediting rate. So what you're doing in essence is annuitizing a lump sum asset. If you need help making this decision, and I would recommend this highly, go to nclifetimeincome.org. This is a separate website independent of the retirement system operated by the State Employees Credit Union. They are currently our disinterested third-party advisor. There's 4 more pages on there, frequently asked questions, an asset calculator, benefit calculator, and the toll-free number of their call center. You can call that toll-free number and they'll actually have an advisor walk you through a financial analysis to help you determine whether or not this is a good idea. So again, this is not for everybody, but it is available. If you need to know how much you got in there, go online to Prudential or call them. They'll be happy to share that info. If you need a new form, call the retirement system or go online, print out your own. But neither the retirement system or Prudential can offer you financial advice as to whether or not you should actually do this. And with that, we're back to Margaret.
Just briefly, Um, okay, so we had talked about consolidating assets. So I want to let you know you've now retired. Yay! What do you do with your money? Well, certainly know that you can keep the money. You can keep the money in a plan. There's certainly options, as we discussed in the past, in terms of why that might be helpful for you. We had mentioned in the back, look, when you separate service, that's a trigger to allow you access to your funds, right? It allows you access to your funds. So it means your money's always yours, but while you're still employed, you might be limited in terms of what you can actually do with the funds. Once you retire, it can roll over or you can put it somewhere else. So should you go to work for another employer, you could actually roll it into their plan. Should you wish to roll it into what's called an individual retirement account that's not tied to an employer, you absolutely can do that as well. Okay, if you go to work for another government entity, so say you retire with your teaser's pension and you go to work with local government, it's the same 401k. It's a form for that, believe it or not, that's just called change of employer. You can start contributing to that. We just move it over. Okay, so just know there are indeed some advantages for kind of keeping things together, certainly keeping things with you. They're designed for retirement. You can begin withdrawals immediately or you can save them for your future. It is truly up to you. Some people will do it monthly. Hey, I need just a little bit of money. I need to set it up on a monthly basis. So withdrawals are what's called systematic. They're on a regular basis. I helped somebody the other day fill out a form. Every December, he dings his 401k. It goes directly into the credit union to pay his property taxes. Because, you know, once we pay off our houses, we don't have escrow any longer, right? So this is something where he set it up just for his convenience, and it was automatic. He didn't have to worry about it at all. It was done automatically for him. So you also can certainly take the money out. You absolutely can take the money out. Now, what would you consider to be maybe a potential concern by just taking all of the money out of the account at one time? Yeah. Webinar land, they were on it with taxes. That's exactly right. So it's not that you can't do it. It's just, is it in your financial interest to do it? And so oftentimes that's where we're necessarily going to suggest that these kinds of larger withdrawals, for example, maybe to pay off a house or those kinds of things, we are going to give you back to say, you know, you might need tax advice on that. Yes, sir.
Do you have to take withdrawals from a Roth?
Okay. Actually, that's a very, very good point. The North Carolina 401k, the North Carolina 457, and the North Carolina 403b plans are tied to your current employment status, right? In terms of that's how you can get those plans. Other people can't get these plans. They want them, but they can't get them. So if you contributed Roth within these plans, the plans themselves supersede Roth, meaning you will be required to take money out of the plans regardless whether it's pre-tax contributions or Roth. Are you with me on that? So just to be clear, webinar land, the question is, if you've got Roth contributions within a defined contribution plan, are they going to force you to take it out at 70.5? And the answer is yes. Yes. So 70.5, as we recall, is required minimum distribution. The government's basically said, look, I've not had any taxes come out of this account for all of these years that you've been saving, right? And then they're saying, look, at some point, we're going to ask you to take a little bit out. There's actually RMD calculators and the like, but the answer is it's not all of the account. It's percentages, right? But we will indeed send you kind of like a birthday letter. Hi, happy birthday. By the way, you have to take some money out, and we'll help you to calculate that as well. So in terms of withdrawals, just know you have lots of options with these plans. It's designed to make sure that you do indeed have enough money. The transfer benefit alone, in fact, I can't support Doug's comment enough about the nclifetimeincome.org site, particularly for our law enforcement officers or those that have uniquenesses to them. When you pull up the suitability statement, is this something, hey, maybe I can do it, but should I do it? That's the bigger question, right? Should I do it? Have you looked at the estimator before? Taking the assets in your 401k, for example, all or some, or putting the two assets together, what does that generate for me monthly? What does it generate? And you're going to look at that and go, ooh, that's exactly what we need. Or you're going to look at that and go, ooh, that's not that much. Not to give up control. So the answer is you're going to know pretty clearly by starting with the estimator, seeing what that is. And if you needed to do additional research, we can't, give you better assets than necessarily the credit union site. Very easy. If the estimator is something that's hard for you to do, meaning, you know how the drop down boxes come out and like you're thinking, do I need a cola? That's not Pepsi Cola. It's cost of living adjustment. Like, am I making the right choices, right? If you're not sure about what you're choosing, that's where we're going to have you go to that site, right? Because you need to make sure you're real good about when you answer the estimator that that's something that you'd want to include. Okay. Alrighty. Taxes.
This will be quick. Okay. Anybody work here prior to July 1, 1982? So I told you that'd be quick. Oh, we do have some. You, prior to that date or on that date and prior, made already taxed contributions to your retirement plan. The retirement system has kept track of all of that. We're going to give that money back to you tax-free. However, not all at once. It's the minimum, no. I forgot. Simplified general rule, IRS definition. So we're going to take into account your age and how much you got in there, the percentage of already taxed versus not taxed, and pay you that percentage of your monthly income for the next 20 years until it's all paid back. So you'll get about $1.57 per month that's tax-free. Thank you very much. Also, if you made a purchase for service prior to 2003, that was also made with already taxed dollars, so that would be treated as the same with the simplified general rule. After 2003, you could actually do rollovers to make service purchases. North Carolina, if you had 5 or more years of membership service on or before August 12, 1989, and never withdrew your contributions, left them in there, maintained, your entire North Carolina retirement benefit is North Carolina resident income tax free. If you move to Georgia, they're going to tax you. There are 12 other states you can move to that do not have an income tax. Just Google it. 12 tax-free states in America. It'll list them all. Tennessee's one, that's all I remember. So is Florida. But again, the whole benefit is North Carolina income tax free. If you move out of North Carolina to another state, you must stop your North Carolina withholding. We withhold for North Carolina only. We don't send it to any other state. You'd have to file a non-resident income tax return just to get your money back. So if you move out of state, stop your North Carolina withholdings. We're going to send you a 1099 before the end of the January or on the last day, one or the other. But this information, 1099, is also in your Orbit account. It's in there 2 weeks, second week in January, 2 weeks before it gets lost in the mail. And they're in there forever. So however many years you've been retired, there's an archive of all of those 1099s. And that tells you what we paid you, how much was taxable, and how much withholding, if anything, you had along the way. Now, reemployment. There are 2 ways to do it. Both of them require a break in service. If you come back before the break in service, you will experience a significant hardship. Up to 3% of the amount of money you earned or the complete revocation of your retirement benefit. That means you pay the retirement system back everything we've already paid you. And then the first of the month after that date is your new retirement date. That starts a new waiting period, so you get to try it all over again. After the break in service, you can come back and become a member again. We'll suspend your retirement. You work as a member as long as you want, and then re-retire. If you work less than 3 years, we'll restore your original, calculate a mini benefit on the new, or you could just let that sit there until sometime in the future you come back again to get more than 3, or at least the minimum. At that time on the third retirement, we would recalculate if that was the case. Or you could withdraw those separate contributions. So there are some different options. If you want to continue to receive your retirement benefit, you can come back and work under the earnings restriction. Now, these return to work rules apply to returning to the employer participating in the system from which you retired. So you could retire from teacher and state and go work for local the day after, wouldn't matter. You could start a new career all over again. But if you retire from local and go back to local, these rules apply. So, earnings restriction, you need to work in a position that does not require membership. So that's less than 30 hours in teacher and state, or a totally temporary position with a start date and an end date, or seasonal employment, start date, end date, or contractual, start date, end date. But again, a position that does not require membership. You can't, in local government, come back and do your old job for 999 hours and then go home. It's not the amount of hours you work, it is what the position requires. The position determines whether or not it's a participating employment opportunity or a non-participating. And these are typically done with your employers. Oh yeah, and if you are in a part-time, temporary, or non-contributing position, you can earn up to 50% of your last 12 months compensation, or $33,560, whichever is higher. Either or, the higher of the two. If you earn too much, we're going to stop your benefit. First of the month after you earn too much, and it'll start up again in January of the following year. So here's Orbit. As a member, you've got access to your entire work history, access to forms, letters, anything. 401 transfer benefit estimator, retirement benefit estimator, your annual benefit statements in there. When you're in the retirement process, your health insurance, e-benefits now, or e-enroll, whatever they decide to call it when you retire, that's in there also. And so is online retirement. As a retiree, you keep the same Orbit password, login, user ID, and now you can access the 1099-R, retirement document, what we're paying you, that history versus what you earn now, it's what we're paying you, and income verification letters, all of that is available in your account. To get to Orbit, this is the login page, user ID, password. If you forget your user ID, here's forgot my user ID, username. If you forgot your password, here's I forgot my password. Do those buttons first. If all else fails, call the call center. We'll get you in there one way or another. Once you get past that login, you see the landing page. You can either click on tiles or the menu. They all go to the same place. But specifically, here is a custom benefit estimator. Here you can choose either retirement age or retirement date. Now, retirement age is the first of the month after whatever age you choose. First of the month after your birthday. Retirement date requires a termination date. For most people, that's the day before or the end of the month before they retire. Because retirements is first of the month. Okay? So you want to retire July 1, your termination date's June 30. But the next one, it's asking service status. This has nothing to do with your military career. You are either an active employee now and will continue to work until you retire or until your termination date, or you have already stopped working. That's the status. In service, out of service. Choose one of those, then you put a beneficiary in there, beneficiary birthday, terminal leave payouts, annual leave dollars, bonus leave dollars, and then your sick leave in days. Hit calculate. There it is. Bingo. If you put a beneficiary in there, all your optional payment options are listed there as well. So now hit the back button. You go back to this page, all the data you already entered in there is still in there. Change a birthday. See what a different survivor looks like. Or on the bottom, add, I want to purchase service. And then hit recalculate. Now, if you've already purchased service, don't add it in there again, because it's already in there, right? But if you want to see what the effect of purchasing service would be, this is how you do it. The first one is the estimate I'm not purchasing. Here's my monthly amount. Back button, add 5, 10, 6, whatever years you're going to purchase. Recalculate. Subtract the little number from the big number, see what the spread is, the difference in your monthly benefit. Take that difference in monthly benefit, divide it into the total cost of what you're planning on purchasing. If you can recover that money in 10 years or less, it might be a good idea. Otherwise, it's probably not a very good idea. But that will tell you exactly how much more you're going to get per month in a retirement benefit before you wrote the check. So again, go through this exercise to determine whether or not purchasing service is a good idea for you. Now, you might have to purchase it just to be eligible to retire. Okay? If you want to retire before 65 in that example, because it could get you to 30 quicker or whatever. So that's a tool for your resources. This is the annual benefit statement. Here's a little picture of the income sources, and then this is an example of the gap calculator or whatever. So this person has a gap of $550 in order to reach 80% of their current income by age 62, or 65 if they're already 62. So the next page would tell you what you might be able to do in order to save more, what different monthly increases in contributions and the end result would be in closing that gap. So it's a tool. On the Prudential site, they have the RIC calculator, Retirement Income Calculator. This has some more, well, this is Prudential's site. It's got forms, their quarterly statements, more information, and here's the RIC calculator. It's got additional inputs that you can add other assets to have it calculate maybe a more realistic total retirement income at some point in the future. Here are a couple of our esteemed associates in the Prudential 401-457 world. Here's a disclaimer we're not going to read. It's available if you need it. Our contact information is on the back of the 4-page handout that you all have. You can see us online, myncretirement.com. We've got email, ncretirement@nctreasurer.com, and we're even on Facebook. So, stay in your seats. We got a special guest, Treasurer Dale Falwell. Thank you.
So am I the last act?
You are.
Oh gosh, I'm standing between you and lunch. That's not good. This crowd gets younger looking every day. So thank you all for coming in. I'm sure you've gotten a wealth of information. Are you down the Q&A, or is that where you are? Or?
We're coming up to that.
Okay. Just to make this brief, thank you all for coming. Congratulations on your retirements, and just want to give you sort of an update of what's going on with your pension and your health care. And you may have heard me say this out in the public before, but behind your family and your faith and your health, the two most important things of your life are at the state treasurer's office, which is your health care and your pension. So just a brief update about the health care and the pension. Number one is that I'm going to say something over the next 6 or 8 minutes, and one is going to be one of the best and one's going to be one of the worst, and you're going to wonder how can one person be saying that when they have responsibility for both of these things. So the pension plan is one of the best funded in the United States. but it has some real headwinds to it. What I mean by best funded is the South Carolina retirement system this morning is 55% funded. The Kentucky retirement system this morning is 33% funded. The Alabama retirement system this morning is 66% funded. And your plan's about 88% funded. So it's one of the best funded in the United States. But the headwind is that every month you all have been contributing to this plan, and the employer that you work for has been contributing to this plan. How many of you are teasers members? Most of you? Okay. And the rest of you are Elgers? Okay. If the rest of you came for the food, there is no food. So sorry about that. Okay. So what does that mean? You may not know this, but every month that you worked, when you put money in this plan, your employer put money in this plan. This is not a match. It's a bill. So this year, the employer contribution rate is 13%. For example, the treasurer's office will put 13% of my salary into this pension plan this year. And if you work for DOT or corrections or highway patrol, or if you're a school teacher, whoever you work for, that bill this year is 13% of your salary. And so you put your money in, the employer puts their money in. It's not a 401k match. It goes in the pension system. And then that money grows over 30 years, and that's why you're all sitting here. Unfortunately, the rate it's supposed to grow at has not achieved it on average in 21 years. And it's not going to achieve it for the next 20 years. And the reason that should matter to you is that even though it's one of the best funded in the United States, it has headwinds. We're trying not to be one of those other states. So the number one headwind, it has not earned its assumed rate of return. The number two headwind, which is a blessed event, is that life expectancies are increasing just for the females. That's actuarially true. The males, our life expectancy is actually going down in North Carolina. So when you have a plan that has no minimum retirement age and the life expectancies are going up, let me give you some facts. When I was in high school in Winston-Salem, anybody here from Winston-Salem? Yeah. You are? Oh, hey, how are you? So when I was in high school in Winston-Salem, we had 248 90-year-olds getting a check out of the pension plan. Last month, it was 7,400 90-year-olds getting a check out of the pension plan. So it never, ever assumed that people would retire as early as they're retiring and live as long as they're living. So what are we doing about it? Number one, there's not a lot we can do about it because the stock market doesn't care what your needs are. And the bond market doesn't care what your needs are. And the real estate market doesn't care what your needs are. And the private equity investment market doesn't care what your needs are. The markets are the markets, and they do what they do. So what we're doing is making sure that money's not leaving the plan when it's not supposed to. So when Harlan Bowles was the treasurer, some of you may have known Treasurer Bowles. He left office in 2001. When he was the treasurer, your pension plan was paying $50 million in Wall Street fees a year. $50 million. When I was sworn in, you're really going to shake your head now. When I was sworn in, the plan was paying $700 million a year in Wall Street fees. So the Wall Street fees had gone from $50 to $700 million. And that's all your money. It's not Wall Street's money. This was your money that Wall Street was charging us. So we're on a pace right now, over a 4-year period, we're on a pace right now to cut $500 million in Wall Street fees out of your pension plan because they were charging too much, and we have found lots of ways to do what they were doing a lot less expensively on your behalf. Second thing we're doing, which gets a little more complicated, is that when we find people who are cashing pension checks of people they know to be deceased, I feel like this is something from the grave. Every time I say this, this crackle comes in from somebody's talking to me. When we find people who are cashing checks of pensioners of this plan that they know to be deceased, we're prosecuting them and trying to put them in jail and getting your money back. Now, it's so gratifying that every time that I say this to one of these groups, nobody gets up and leaves. That'd be the guilty one who did that. But we have one person that's currently under indictment for cashing his deceased mother's pension check for 16 years. And that one overpayment was $266,000. That's one person. So the third thing, which is even more complicated, is that unfortunately, and I always say this because there are no Democrat and Republican crimes in North Carolina as far as I know. There's no Democrat and Republican fires, and there's no Democrat and Republican money at the Treasurer's office. There are crimes, there are fires, and there's money. So what I'm about to say applies to people of all colors, all genders, and all political parties. We have people who are being convicted of crimes while on their public service duties. Embezzlement. This is register of deeds. This is district attorneys. These are county managers, all up and down the spectrum of public service. And when they're convicted of a crime, we go in and we recalculate their pension benefit and take away that service for the period in which they were convicted of the crime. Now, the reason I say that is that we don't pick and choose which laws to apply or who to apply them to, nor does this gentleman in the back. You don't pick and choose which laws to apply or who to apply them to. And we don't do that as far as your pension. No matter what political party you're a member of or how up you are in the chain of command, if you are convicted of a crime while on your public service duties, we go in and we recalculate your pension credit by taking those years of service away from you. The health plan, how many of you have heard the commercials about the risky scheme of the state treasurer regarding the state health plan? Not many, that's great, because the other side, they spent $3 million against me on that. So I know how tired you are, and I'm going to close this down. But before I do that, I'm going to tell you that the health plan is one of the most bankrupt in the United States. According to Pew Research, our insolvency in the state health plan is right behind Illinois, the same Illinois you've been hearing about. So my wife always says, people want to know how we got there. And then she says they also want to know what we're going to do about it. So in the state health plan, everybody knows about the state health plan. It's the only thing in your life, unlike the glasses you're wearing, the car you drove in here, the tank of gas you're getting ready to buy on the way home, or the lunch you're going to purchase in just a few minutes. It's the only thing in your life where you don't know the cost and the value of it even after you've consumed it. That's the healthcare system of the United States. The way this is affecting state employees is that we have beginning teachers and beginning troopers and beginning state employees right now in all of your agencies based on their beginning salary who cannot afford to insure their families because they have to work 1 week out of every work month for the family premium inside the state health plan that I have the responsibility for. That is unacceptable to me. So now we have beginning teachers, beginning troopers, beginning state employees who are making the decision between mortgage and healthcare, energy and healthcare, food and healthcare, running their life and healthcare. The fact is this health plan is the largest purchaser of this thing in the state. As a matter of fact, you've never heard this before, we have almost as many people in this state health plan than work for these companies combined. Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett's company, Jamie Dimon's, JP Morgan, the big bank, and Jeff Bezos is Amazon. If you add up all the people that work for that company in the United States, that's how large your health plan is. We ought to be able to do it better and cheaper on behalf of public service workers, and that's what we're trying to do. So the risky plan, really simple as this. We sent a request to UNC Healthcare. If you're offended because you work for UNC Healthcare, I apologize in advance. UNC Healthcare is just one of the hospitals that we sent last year $300 million to for healthcare services for state employees. $300 million to one hospital. And I sent them a letter and I said, I know what we're paying. Can you tell me, we're trying to figure out what we're supposed to pay. Imagine any of you going to a Harris Teeter and there not being any prices on anything. Now that wouldn't be good for me because I go on Thursdays. I'm now eligible for the senior discount. Secondly, I like BOGOs, but I like to buy 2, get 3 free coupons. But just think about going to Harris Teeter right now and not knowing the price of anything you picked up and put in your cart until you got to the checkout counter and they said, this is how much it's going to be. That's what healthcare is like right now. You have no idea. So I sent this request so I can try to figure out what the master charge is, what the price of healthcare is at UNC Healthcare. This is what they sent me. Are you ready? Every page was blacked out. And they said I didn't need to know. We're the customer. I am the customer on behalf of you. I don't think anybody in this room wants me paying bills where I don't know what I'm paying for, because this is your money. So this risky scheme of the state treasurer's office is we're going to bring transparency to healthcare. Even after this happens, you get some explanation of benefit that doesn't explain the benefit of anything. Now, don't nod your head, but most people in this room, when they get one of these in the mail, they dread opening it up. They probably throw it in a corner or in a bowl somewhere. And then when they do have the courage to open it up, they go to the last entry on the last page to figure out how much they owe. That is not right. You don't do your credit card bill that way, right? You don't do anything else that way. So what we're going to do is we're going to reference-based pricing so that people know what they're paying for. They know what they're paying for it so that they can compare prices on healthcare. That's all we're doing with the risky plan. So it started with the new health plan card, which you know this year is for the first time in your lives, it does not have Blue Cross Blue Shield on the front. The reason is that Blue Cross Blue Shield is not the insurer for the state health plan and have never been the insurer. They're the third-party administrator of the back office. So now on the front of it, it says your state health plan paid for of you and taxpayers like you. I want you to think about this as deeply as you do one of these. None of you, and I don't know you personally, pull one of these out of your pocket unless you know the value and the price of what you're spending. None of you do that. And then when you get the bill, you look at the bill to see, did I spend that money at that place? I want you to think the same way about this, because the next generation of people like you, they're dependent on people like us, my age, to save money in this plan so that we can continue to offer the state health plan benefit at a reasonable cost going forward. I guess I'll say in closing two things. Number one, Coach K once said when they asked him about his courtside manner, he said, you know, there's some things that happen right in front of your eyes that are worth getting mad about. And it makes me mad that we're the largest purchaser of healthcare in North Carolina, and we don't know what we're paying for, and we can't afford to give the families of the work for the state of North Carolina a premium that they can afford. That's worth getting mad about. These people are educating your kids, paving your roads, protecting you from crime right now while we're sitting here. And the largest purchaser of this product should be able to do it better and cheaper. And the last thing, I'll take one or two questions if you have one. The reason this is serious is that the state pension plan has a $15 billion unfunded liability. Billion. The state health plan, this is the actuarial report, has a $32 billion unfunded liability. The reason is that for all the years that you've worked for the state of North Carolina, no money has ever been put aside for retiree health care expenses. You've been told you have retiree health care, but not one penny has ever been put aside for that purpose in 40 years. So if you wonder about why I seem so serious, is because it is serious. And we're trying to figure out what's right, get it right, and keep it right. So I appreciate your time. Does anybody have one question of anything? You can ask me anything that you may have heard or don't like about what you've heard. Anything else? Anything? Yes. Speak up, please. The question is, does that mean we're going to have to pay more? Okay. 2 years ago, we froze the family premiums. Last year, we froze family premiums. There are people in this room who are approaching 65, I presume. Okay? Well, I'm one of them, actually. The reason we were able to freeze family premiums is we just negotiated a fantastic rate with United Healthcare for our Medicare Advantage folks. And I saved $54 million in that renegotiating of that contract. And I took that $54 million and I froze the premiums for everybody else in the plan. So what I'm trying to get you conditioned to think about is that anytime we save money in this plan, we're going to do two things. We're going to drive down family premiums. We're going to take advantage of our largeness, and we're going to build the reserves in order to pay for the retiree health care. I'm not taking any of this home with me. It all stays in the plan. So we're doing our darndest. Now, the other question that you did not ask is that how is it that no premium's ever been charged? The reason is that they were messing around inside the plan. They were decreasing the value in the plan in ways that you can't see. Deductibles, co-pays, tiering, and all this little complicated stuff in this plan. And you never know it till you get an explanation of benefit in the mail, and it doesn't explain the benefit of anything. You never really know this. We're not a part of that anymore. By the way, this explanation of benefit is for a $165 facility fee for $11 flu shot. This is what's happening to state employees, and that's why we're getting after it. So, one more question? Yes.
So the big rally tomorrow, one of the things on the list is reinstating retirees' benefits. Our benefit plan. And of course, I didn't understand enough about that, so I don't see anywhere where it says that there is not going to be a benefit plan for retirees.
The way that is being portrayed is false.
Okay, that's good. I can spread.
I have asked the president of that organization to allow me to speak at that rally and show them the facts, but they have absolutely no interest in me doing that.
Okay.
So let me clarify what she just said. There's a new law in place that people hired after January 1st, 2021 will not be eligible for retirement health care for new hires. They'll be eligible for health care the whole time they work for the state. Everybody who was hired before that date is eligible for health care for the whole time they work for the state and after they retire. None of that changes. It's just for new hires after January 1, 2021 and after they retire. So now we're talking 2051, if you can think that far ahead. So anyway,
that was what I sort of understood, but I just want to make sure I have.
But they have, that group, unfortunately, has no interest in getting the right information to people. And that's sad. So
why do you say that information is incorrect, that anyone hired, the new hires will or will not have?
Great clarification. New hires after 1/1/21 will not be eligible for retirement health care. They will be eligible for health care for the whole time they worked.
That is correct.
That is correct. Yes. That is correct. But not however long they work, when they work, they get health care every single month. Yeah. But it's been said on TV about some of the folks that, there's not going to be more health care for teachers. It's just completely.
Yeah, that's what it makes it sound.
It's what's wrong with our country. It's like when John Lennon was talking to Paul McCartney in the 60s and said, "Can you hear me?" They were on stage singing together and they couldn't hear each other because people were just screaming past each other. That's where we are in our society right now. People are just screaming past each other. Nobody wants really to be informed. So I appreciate you asking the question and you letting us clarify. I see the fans coming out. I was a Quaker and a Baptist. Now I'm a Methodist. So I know what the fans coming out means. So anyway, to make this possibly profitable for you, how many of you have heard of NC Cash? Okay. In this building is something called the Escheats Division. Now, I used to be a stutterer, and sometimes I still do, but I can tell you that's one of the hardest words to say without messing it up and saying the wrong thing. It's called the Escheats Division of North Carolina. Every state has one, so whatever I'm about ready to tell you, if you've lived in another state, you can go to their website and get the same thing. It's called Unclaimed Property NC Cash. Now, there's $700 million. Don't all run out of the room at the same time. I don't tell you this till the end, so you won't be checking your devices. There's $700 million at the Unclaimed Property Division. How did that get there? It got there because your last paycheck didn't get to you from some employer 12 years ago. You made a deposit on an apartment that was returned to you, or some homeowners association, or a dividend check from electric co-op, or last year we gave $600,000 to one lady who was the beneficiary of a life insurance policy that her father took out and she had no idea. So my point of telling you that is that you can go to nccash.com. If you don't see my face at the top, you're at the wrong website, because there are property finders who are trying to troll to get you to go to their website. So go to nccash.com. There's $700 million in cash sitting there. Now, there's some other things sitting there in case you have any of these things missing in your life. There's some gold teeth. There's some baby teeth. There's some false teeth. Everybody goes like this when I say that. The reason is that back in my day, there's something at the bank called a lockbox. So all the abandoned lock boxes in North Carolina end up at our department. So we got baby bracelets. We got anything that anybody could have possibly put in a lockbox, we actually have at the NC Cash. But mainly it's about $700 million of cash and securities. Now, to tell you what the odds are, we have 11 million records over there of things that belong to people. 11 million records. We only have 10 million citizens. So chances are somebody on each one of these rows, or somebody you're married to on each one of these rows, or somebody you're related to on each one of these rows, somebody on each one of these rows has money at the NC Cash division. So my last name's Falwell. My time is up. I really want you to start paying attention to your newsletters and stuff about the state health plan system. The other key I forgot to tell you is this. From now on, when you consume health care or prescription drugs in North Carolina, ask the provider what the cash price is. It's not happening now, but it used to happen where you would go possibly to get a drug prescription filled, and the copay was $10. And if you didn't use the insurance card, it would have been $2.08. So ask the cash price, and also ask this of your doctor or your specialist. Sometimes the copay is $90 and the cash price is $80, and never even use this. Because I can promise you every penny we save in this plan is a penny that ultimately can be spent on public education, public roads, public safety, and all the other core functions. Thanks for letting me barge in. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, now that brings us to the portion we call the Town Hall Q&A. So if you've got any questions, we'll be happy to answer. Pension or defined contribution? Going once? Going twice? One in the back.
We'll offer the sit-down seminar for people to come in for post-retirement and sit down with an expert and kind of go through their personal situation.
Absolutely. If you're within a year and a half of retirement, we'd be more than happy to either do a one-on-one webinar called a virtual appointment, or you can come to this office and talk to a counselor. Just call the call center number, 877-NC-SECURE, hit prompt number 5, and we'll find out all about it. 877-NC-SECURE. It's on the back of the big handout. Option 5.
For that post age 50 makeup contributions, can you take retirement date back 12 months, or is it a fiscal year where that limit is set for? Because if I retire partway through the year, I don't get to contribute the whole 20-something thousand or whatever. Is that right? So how does that work?
No, the question was in terms of the amount that you can put into a plan per year. Like, let's say, for example, you're retiring in the middle of the year. You're thinking maybe it's like a prorated amount. No, you can put in $25,000 into your 401k, even if it's within one paycheck. Okay, so when you're retiring middle of the year and you want to be able to max out the plan, as long as it comes through your pay, you can contribute up to the max.
But you only got 6 months to do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Calendar
I have to
year.
calculate what I've already been putting in and just subtract that, and I'm good.
yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
You're going to blow up?
$6,000 a year for contribution.
Well, you know what? IRAs are different than employer-sponsored plans. You're absolutely right. So there is actually a IRA, and there's actually a catch-up provision for IRAs, right? And so they're considerably less, but yes, there are maximums.
Anybody else?
I actually do have
Okay, we'll go here and then back.
this. I've wondered about this, and it may be a really not smart question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. So when you go into the calculator and do your own, create your own custom calculation, and once you go in and do that, it comes up with your amount or whatever, and that's pre-tax, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, right.
Yeah.
We're not deducting taxes because we don't know how many exemptions or bracket you're going to choose. That's the total gross benefit.
Got
So
it.
Right.
just in case you didn't hear, the estimators, projections of future income, any of that is gross dollars. It doesn't mean that's what your tax liability is going to include. It's kind of like what you're getting paid now versus what you're taking home. And so that is a very important piece when you're looking at your estimator going, that's exactly what we need. Well, that's not exactly what you're going to take home.
No.
Quest.
For the 4 years, consecutive employment when it comes to salary, how does that, so if you have a change in salary like mid-year, how does that get calculated for that particular year? Do you say, 12 months, you get that average, or?
No, it's what you actually got per month. So if you got a mid-year raise, 6 of those months would be higher, but we're capturing 48 calendar months, the equivalent of 4 calendar years,
By month more than by year.
particularly month, yes. We're not averaging, annualizing, nothing. You got 48 paychecks, we're adding them all together, divide by 4, and that's your average.
So,
Will that still help you? Yes.
if you're wanting to retire early and after you've had 10 years of service, how do you know how much your health insurance will cost you? Is that through the state retirement health fund?
NCSHP is going to give you the real answer, but in a nutshell, depending on when you were hired, I'm assuming after October 10th, 2006, once you have 10 years, you pay half.
So how do you know what half is?
It's on the website. There's a benefit calculator. Right. That's full participating, 50% participating, not participating are the 3 different options in the calculator.
So is it on this website or the
State health
State
plan.
health plan.
Okay.
Right.
And they have a customer service department too.
Okay.
Do you happen to know, is dependent coverage still available when you retire, or is it just?
Whatever you can get today, you can get as a retiree. So if you had 10 years and you were hired after October 1, 2006, you'd pay 50% of the state's premium plus 100% of the family premium that you'd have paid anyways. So that's how that would work. Anybody else? Yes.
The optional insurances
Mhm.
and vision stuff, is that different than what we have now?
Good question. The question is the optional benefits for supplemental, dental, and vision different than we have now? Yes, they are. The stuff you have now is going to terminate the day you walk out the door. It's not like health plan that's good for another 30 days. It's over when you terminate. These are replacements. They're suitable substitutes. They're all with United Health, the dental and vision, but you are starting a brand new plan all over again. There is dental and vision Cobra, should you need it. But again, you would have to set that up through your employer. Okay, thanks. Well, I want to thank you all for coming out today, spending some time here with the retirement system. Y'all have a wonderful day. Are you done with questions? Okay.
It seemed good when I first started.
Yeah, it did.
It surely just, it seemed like it stopped.